be looking at what that is, trying to do the scene right, why that's upside down, and what is actually your access to being great. I'll also share a free training in the comments. It's called Stop Trying to Be Good So You Have a Chance at Being Great. And that will give you a chance to take some steps in that direction. So I often hear a lot of actors say that as soon as they get an audition, for example, the first thing they'll try to do is to figure out the scene, right? As if there was only one way that the scene would exist. So people try to get what the casting director wants. I often hear people say, what do they actually want? Or what should it be? What should I do with this scene is another version of what I hear. I hear also people say, okay, I know what the scene is about. I'm going to make sure that I choose a different version of it, so I'm different, and therefore I get noticed. So it's another way of actually trying to please the casting director or the director. It's a way to actually manipulate the outcome. So when you're trying to do it right, you're putting yourself in the future. You're trying to manipulate the result and the outcome. You're thinking about booking. You're thinking about selling. And you're not actually present, right? Because if I'm in the future, I'm not in the present. And so that's the first reason why it doesn't work. The second reason why it doesn't work is because there really isn't a right or wrong way to do a scene. There's only your way to do a scene. Usually what actors do when they feel that they're not, at their 100%, they keep thinking that it has to do with scene study class. I hear a lot of actors say, I need to go to my scene study, like, becoming more and more perfect at understanding what a scene is about. So spending your whole talent on really text analysis and kind of trying to guess what people want out of the scene. So I feel like that's a discipline of people pleasing. It's not the discipline of acting, right? Because breaking down script and analyzing script, I wouldn't say that's the job description of an actor, right? The job description of an actor is bringing life to another human being, the character, in a specific set of circumstances and situations. That's the job of an actor, to bring life. So the reason why trying to do it right is upside down is because when you're actually trying to do it right, you're skipping yourself, as if there is out there a version of the right and only scene that's existing. That means that you skip yourself, that you're in existence. So everyone would come in the room and does that scene, and actually being on the other side of things too, and having been in casting rooms, 98% of people come in and try to do it right. And then they do more and more scene study class and study more and more methods. So they also try to do the method right. So the way that you work on your scene, there's a right way to work on it, and then there's a right way to do the scene, and then you'll also add maybe some camera classes. So there's a right way to stand in front of the camera. So all of these things, the more you do them, the more they take you away from your instinct and from your uniqueness, from what you actually have to bring to the table. So it's upside down because right and wrong actually don't exist. You can take any circumstance. Let's take a fight between a husband and a wife. There's no right way for any human being to live that. You change and put different beings in the same exact fight over, say, the dishwasher in a household. That fight will go in very different, each and every time, ways with different people, with different human beings. So what the first thing you have to do when you get an audition, or when you think of acting in the first place, is actually make sure that your instrument is open enough to get impacted by the scene. How is it affecting me when I am putting myself in those circumstances? And in order to do that, in order to solicitate your instrument and open yourself up to those circumstances, you have to have an instrument that is open, that feels what it feels, that is not stuck into resistance, right? So the first thing you got to do is make sure that your instrument is alive, because that's your job description, is to bring life to a character. So when you get your auditions, or when you think of your acting in general, the first thing you want to make sure of always is that your instinct, your instrument is open, fully expressed, fully alive, free, in the moment, all of those things. You want to make sure that that's done. And usually that's not done because you haven't been programmed that way. You haven't been conditioned that way. From parenting to school and society, what happens is that you're, from your little age to now, you're always being told what to do and how to do it, and that there's a correct way to do, to feel, to behave, to think. And because you're brought up into this society, well, you drink the Kool-Aid and you format and program and condition yourself that way. Like, there's a right way to live, there's a right way to think, there's a right way to feel, there's a right way to analyze this script. When really there isn't. There's as many ways as there are human beings. So the first thing you want to make sure you do, whether you've done that already or whether you haven't done it, is always make sure that your instrument is fully alive. If it's not fully alive and it's still under the straightening jacket and it's still conditioned and resistant and obeying to some authority out there, well, then you have nothing to bring. You have no life of your own to bring, right? Because what makes a great performance is actually when you with your specific life being impacted by those lines, right? So, and by this character. So it's the meeting of you and the character. And when I mean you, I mean the 100% version of you, not the 10% version of you, and 90% of the rest of you is actually your conditioning, and you're just like a robot, and you're, not even realizing that you're just the product of society. You need to undo that so that you have access to your raw, pure, fully alive self, fully alive and unique. When you have that, then you and the material can start meeting, can start discovering, you can start exploring, because you have a fully open instrument. You can walk into the audition room and actually bring your life to this character. You can blow that into the character, right? Oh, shoot, I said right. Okay, so did I touch on all my points? I think I did. Yeah. The second you try to do it right, you're in the future. Just to recap things, the second you try to do it right, you're in the future. There is no right or wrong. There's as many ways to do a scene as there are different human beings. So if you're trying to do it right, you're going upside down. You want to make sure that the first thing you do, and that you always do, is that you are able and capable to bring the full version of yourself, your whole and complete and alive version of yourself. And if you cannot do that, then you need to start with that. And that's always going to be your priority, because you want to be connected. You want to be you. You want to be unique. That's what people want to pay for. That's what casting is interested in. They don't want to see 10 people walking in with the same version of the scene and it's just the hair color that changes. That no one is impacted by that. No one feels from that. No one is moved by that. They want someone to come in with a version of what is written that they couldn't even have thought of, that is much bigger than what is written. And in order to do that, in order to touch that greatness, you actually have to be there. Because if you're not, if you're only partially there, well, there's no way that you can access that. I think a great analogy is, let's say we would be talking about basketball. We don't start learning to shoot. We start relearning to run, because you might think that the point of the whole game is to shoot and to make baskets. I don't even know if you say it that way. But actually the way that you'll shoot is completely impacted and informed by the way that you move on the court, by the speed at which you run, by the flow at which you arrive and then kind of stretch and then lay it up. Is that the name? I don't know. But you know what I mean? So before you shoot, before you get it right, and there is no right, you really need to make sure that all your instrument is capable of moving at its maximum capacity, so that once you have that going, then the shooting happens by itself, right? So it's kind of the same thing here with your instinct. If you're trying to do it right, there's no root. It's coming out of nowhere. You're not present. However, if you make sure that your instrument is rich of itself, feels what it feels, thinks what it thinks, moves how it moves, etc., and it's not restricted by its conditioning, well then you're coming from a completely unique and great place, because no one else could do it like you, right? And it's fully alive because it is you. I put the free training in the comments, and then you can have access to that, and that will give you the next step into doing this work. Thank you guys. Bye.
If you're interested in this, and if this makes sense, if you want to do this work, you can get on our wait list. You click the link below, and as soon as we open enrollment, we'll let you know.